This happened when I was about 7 years old to my uncle. He no longer is with us, and I wanted to share his story. Growing up, I lived in northern Michigan on 5,000 acres of farmland that backed up into state land. Nothing but miles of forest and pasture could be seen. Needless to say, it made us pretty tough, and it took a lot to spook us. We were all avid hunters, fishermen, and outdoorsmen. Being the only girl, I was raised as a tomboy, and I'm just the same. My uncle went off to join the military, becoming a senior NCO in a prominent Special Forces division of the U.S. Navy. He was 6'4", built like a wrestler, obviously skilled in survival tactics, and nothing rattled him. He was home on leave and went out hunting as it was deer season. I remember him coming in the house shaking and crying, saying he saw something in the woods. My uncle never cried. He was tough as nails and would tear someone to shreds before he let them make him cry. My grandmother tried to get him to make sense, but he kept saying he saw a Bigfoot mixed with a wolf. My granny immediately got my grandfather, and he rounded up the rest of the guys hunting. A few male cousins, my uncle, who was still terrified, but he went because he didn't want to be labeled as a chicken, got all their shotguns and ammunition and saddled the horses to go clear the woods. Apparently, they were aware of the Dogman, but I was blissfully young and ignorant. They told me to stay inside, and for no reason was I to step outside of the house until they returned. I have never heard my dad or grandfather so serious, so I hid in my room. Sunset comes, and they still aren't back. I'm really worried at this point because they never stayed in the woods until after dark. Shortly, I hear the sound of horses running to the barn, and their voices. I was so relieved. They looked troubled when they came into the house, but didn't say anything. Probably not to spook me. At dinner, my dad laid down the law that I was no longer allowed to play outside or go to the barns alone. I had to have my grandfather with me at all times. Of course, I was upset by this and felt my independence was being taken away, but I obeyed. The next morning, my dad and grandfather taught me how to shoot. I knew it was serious. I overheard the adults talking the next day. Apparently, there were tracks where my uncle had his sighting, bigger than any wolf could ever make, but they were definitely dog tracks. As I said before, we were avid outdoorsmen and hunters. We can identify tracks easily, but these couldn't be identified. About 8 feet up in the tree were claw marks. No Michigan bear could make those. We also saw claw marks about the same height on multiple trees throughout our property. Had cattle mutilated, and not in the way a coyote or bear would, and lasted that whole winter. We lost about 30 or 40 cattle that winter, all of them mutilated, all with the same wolf dog tracks in the snow. I really feel like this experience changed my uncle. After that experience, he never was the same. He went from not ever drinking to never seeing him without a bottle of Jack. And his eyes were always haunted. His personality changed drastically, and he never went out in the woods again.